It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Tuesday, March 18th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that really wishes the Flyers skaters could have done Ivan Fedotov a solid and scored on the power play.
Yeah, that power play.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade. I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 19 years, Russ Cohen. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. And to keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on all your favorite socials. And of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Phantoms Tuesday, and we are going to get into how the new guys performed, Aleksei Kolosov in net, plus give our picks for the remaining Flyers call up left and who from the Phantoms we would choose. Before that, we are going to talk about that 2-0 shutout loss to the Tampa Bay Lightning last night with that absolutely spectacular performance in net from Ivan Fedotov. And I honestly, the outcome of the game aside, I am just so happy for him because he's getting more games in, and you see what happens when he gets more ice time. He learns, he progresses, he's building on his game, and that's what we want to see.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it all year that he needed to play more. Now he is going to start to play more, and he's definitely feeling more comfortable. And there's, some really good things in his game. He's flopping a lot less. He's leaving the net a
Mhm.
lot less, and he's becoming harder to play against.
Yeah, and after the game in the post-game interview, he talked a little bit about his stick work and puck
hmm
play behind the net, that he's getting more confident with that and he's
hmm
taking less risks with it. And I just find that to be the case. And I think it's starting to be a bright light in this season a little
Yeah.
bit. Got to be careful here, but this is
No, he
two
can still have
games.
ups and downs. There's no doubt. This is his
Yeah,
first season. I mean,
I know. I know. Like, putting the few games he played last season aside, this is
no,
truly his
that
first
was,
season
yeah, it's his
in
first
the
season.
NHL. And so to see, like, when given the proper ice time, what he can do and how he can progress, that makes me very hopeful for his potential as an NHL goaltender.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're starting to see it, and I think it will start to come through.
Now, I think, as I said on Blue Sky, that Travis Konecny owes him some sort of apology gift to, like, at least throw him a
Yeah.
dinner or
Yep.
something
Yep.
because, oof.
Yeah. I mean, but and that was really just the start of it. I mean, there were times where he would have a really good shot on net, he missed the net. It's all mental, and I'll just go back to I think somebody needs to talk to him. It just feels like John's going to just leave him alone, and he'll come out of it when he comes out of it. Well, he hasn't. And if he doesn't come out of it for the whole second half of the season, or whatever you want to call from the Four Nations, that's not a great way to end the season. So I think they should be trying to do
Right.
something to get him out of it besides letting him just work it out.
Yeah, I think some of the timing has been very unfortunate for him because you
Yeah.
mentioned the Four Nations, and that was a big deal for him, and
Yes.
to not play in that final was also probably a big deal for him.
Sure.
Then he comes back to the Flyers where he's just probably starting to come to terms with the fact that Farabee and Frost are gone,
Right.
right? And then, Scott Laughton gets traded, who is another close friend of his and somebody who he works very well with on the ice and was a huge part of when the Flyers penalty kill was successful, and they do have good chemistry. And so I think there's some element of him feeling a little lost out there.
Yeah, I think so. But it's long enough from that now that it shouldn't be.
Right. And it is a problem, and there has to be a way around this before the end of this season. I think that's
Right.
very important, so that at least this off season, he's working on and training in a way that's very normal as opposed to
Yeah.
being haunted by
Right.
this long stretch of games without scoring.
Right. Yeah, you don't want that because if he struggles for the rest of the year, it's not going to be a great offseason for him.
Right, and obviously a big part of the struggle here is the abysmal Flyers power play,
Oh boy.
which when they couldn't get anything really quality going on that 4-minute power play,
I
like
mean, they only had 5 shots on net after that expired for the whole period. So I think they may have only gotten 3 shots on net during the 4-minute power play, not to mention the 2-on-1 that Tampa had, and that was their, I think, second 2-on-1. This is how I knew. I mean, again, if they wanted to be more proactive about this power play, they could. Like if they let Rocky go now, would it really matter? And they just tried to actually fix it with somebody else, call him up from Lehigh, something to finish out the season. They could do that, but they're not going
right.
to. John won't do that. So I saw on the first power play, when you have a kid like Michkov who decides, I'm going to have to take the shot here because nobody will shoot. Nobody was willing to shoot but him. Like, that's crazy. He took like 4 shots because nobody else would shoot. Like, that's the coaching staff has to look at that and say, guys, this is a problem. And this is a problem that you're going to solve.
Right, and, you look at that first power play that they had, I believe it was Michkov had 2 shots on goal, Konecny had 2 shots on goal,
Yeah, he finally
and
shot after Michkov
then
did
Forster
that.
had 1,
Right.
right, in the other unit, and so and that was it. Every other power play in the rest of the
Yeah, it just
game,
faded after
0
that.
shots on goal.
Yeah.
So, that is a huge problem. We know it's a huge problem, and you're right, like, they just haven't done anything to suggest that a solution is even, like, under consideration at
Right.
this
At
point.
least Forster had the shot from the bumper. That was fine.
Right.
Okay, good. But yeah, no, they haven't done anything. And I feel bad that a rookie feels like he has to kind of shoulder this burden offensively. It's
Right,
not a
and it's
great place to
partially
be.
because Konechny's having those
It
struggles,
is.
right? If
Yes.
Konechny was doing fine, I think they could balance between the 2 of
Yeah,
them, and that would be good for Michkov as well.
it would.
And I think that they are doing the right thing with keeping Michkov and Couturier together. Now that Couturier penalty at the end was really
Yeah,
tough,
that was tough.
but it happens.
It
So
does.
I get it, but I think that yeah, I just wish that Konechny was doing okay because the burden being on everybody else isn't working either.
No, 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 it's not. And look, there's a lot of other players that just aren't coming through. It's really not from a lack of effort. It's probably just from a lack of, hey, they're not locked in. They're not feeling confident. So, their game's a little off. Everybody's game is a little off.
Yeah, and I would say, we talked about Ryan Paling being a bright spot
Hmm.
of the homestand, and he was to a large degree, but even he has a lack of finish, and we've seen
Right.
it, for a couple of games in a row here.
Right. No, it's true. And he is getting some good skating chances and things like that. But the things that trouble me are they're losing these puck races. Like every time there's a loose puck, Tampa was just faster, and
Right.
it's like the Flyers don't have their slowest lineup out there. They don't, and so it's like to me, it's like, come on, guys. It's not like if they just can't keep up, then they're going to have to make more changes to this team in the offseason just to be able to keep up speed wise. So, and I don't think it's that. I just think it's just everything's a little off, and so they're like, their brain function isn't working like it should. It's not firing the way it should.
Right, and Tampa just flat out played excellent defense in
They
this
did.
game, right? And that was a huge part of it, but the Flyers have to be able to adjust to get around it, and they
Right.
didn't.
No.
And that's just the difference between a very good team like Tampa and a team like the Flyers,
Yeah. I mean, I was happy they at least put Lixell on the power play. That's fine. They
right?
gave him a look there. I don't think they did anything with Peltier, and he was
Nope.
really making some plays. And it's like he is just not getting a chance. Like this was a perfect game where nothing's working. Why don't you at least put this guy on the top line? Who cares? Just put
Who
him out there.
cares?
Let him do it. He might surprise you. You don't know. They needed something, some sort of spark, and at least he was forechecking and got the puck a few times. He just isn't out there.
6:46 of ice time
Oh my god.
there. And Delorier once again out there 5 minutes and 20 seconds. Why?
And
Why
they
bother?
basically said what I said. He can't find a dance partner out there. Well, the reason he can't is because the other teams don't care about him. They're not going to
No.
fight. Teams that are good right now are not going to fight towards the end of the season. So Nick
And risk getting
Delorier,
injured.
right?
Why?
So it just doesn't. It's pointless to have him out there. Absolutely
Yeah.
pointless.
Yeah, and I feel bad for Rodrigo Abels too
Yeah,
because he only got 6 minutes of ice
I
time,
know.
and we know he can do more.
And he actually made a couple good plays too, the same as
Mhm.
Peltier. But again, they're just not out there long enough to make a difference.
Yeah. Well, that it's again a very frustrating loss just because Fedotov played so well, and
Yeah, he needed better.
there were obvious things they could have done to maybe make things a little bit different here, and they didn't. But to be continued against the Washington Capitals on Thursday. In the meantime, it is Phantoms Tuesday, and we've got a lot to talk about with them. We're going to do that coming up next.
Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Posting a job is free and simple, and within a day, you'll have multiple qualified candidates to choose from. I did. I actually used Upwork for my site, NHLDraftBuzz.com. It's been out for almost a year, and I had 3 candidates instantly, pared it down to 1, and made a good choice, and you can go take a look at it. They did a nice job. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today.
There's nothing like watching women's basketball live. The energy of the crowd, the sound of sneakers on the hardwood, and maybe even a celebrity sighting courtside. If you want to catch a game in person, Game Time makes getting tickets easier than ever. Game Time's new feature, Game Time Picks, filters out the fluff and shows you only the best deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time scrolling through thousands of tickets. Game Time Picks even highlights super deals, giving you the best bang for your buck. And with seat views before you buy, no surprise fees, and a lowest price guarantee, you can book with total confidence. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. On tomorrow's show, we are going to take a look at that proposal to have 84 NHL games in a season, no All Star game, all that stuff that came out. It's a very interesting proposal with pros and cons on both sides of the coin there. So, excited to get into that. Plus, we will have your mailbag questions. Let us know on any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment on our YouTube channel. This week, the Lehigh Valley Phantoms had 2 games, Friday and Sunday, against Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. It was a split decision where they won on Friday 3-1 and lost on Sunday 5-3. But guess what, Russ?
What?
We are done with Wilkes-Barre Scranton for the season. So I think that's a good thing.
That's a
In
positive,
the end,
although
yeah,
although they can match up in the playoffs, but
they could, but we're done for the
for
regular
the
season.
regular season, yes.
Yeah, there's 12 games remaining, and the Phantoms are still in 5th in the Atlantic, 6th in point percentage. I think they're gonna be in 5th or 6th no
Right.
matter what when all is said and done in the playoffs, given how the other teams are. So, I think that it kinda is what it is. Would we have liked the Phantoms to have had a better season than that?
Yes.
100%.
At least
But
they're
I
gonna
think
make it, that's
yeah,
fine. I mean, they
yeah,
it'd be nice if they could win around. Uh,
right.
it is gonna depend on who they match up with. It's not like they're the kind of team that I say, "They're gonna win around no matter what." I can't say that.
Right. Exactly. We'll get to that when
Yeah.
the playoffs actually start and see who the matchup is against. In the meantime, so we still have Emil Andre, Abels, and Ole Lixell up with the Flyers. That's three of the four call ups that the Flyers are allowed post trade deadline. So there's one left. We're going to give our pick for who we would do as the remaining call up a little bit later in the Phantoms Tuesday segment here. But we have to look at the new guys because they actually made their debut with the
Hmm.
Phantoms. Givani Smith played both games this week, and Nikita Grebenkin had some delays, so he only played in Sunday's game. And I think, there were some positives from both of these guys. Now, with Samu Tuamala still out, he's out 6 to 8 weeks now since the injury initially happened 2 weeks ago. So now,
Right.
we're kind of in this 4 to 6 week window here, and there's some other injuries. So the new guys are gonna have a bigger role with some of the injuries we have, including, Massimo Rizzo as well, and, Cooper Marody. So Givani Smith, like I said, played in both games here. I would say, Friday was a little bit more tentative with some adjustment going on with that being his first game. You could tell that's kind of
Hmm.
what was happening. But on Sunday, he broke out, I thought, a lot more, was playing more of his game, very physical. His style was really aggressive in the offensive zone. And it paid off because he scored.
Yeah, Smith is a pro. Like, he's been in the pros long enough that he's a quality AHL player and can tread the line and play a little bit in the NHL. Like, he's a pro.
Right, now it's interesting because it's his first AHL goal of the season because 'cause he's been getting
Yeah,
the NHL
yeah.
time, with the Sharks, so I think that's an interesting aspect of it, but I think it was really good for chemistry and
It
whatnot
is
for
good for
him to
chemistry, and he's a good locker room
get
guy.
on the
I
board.
like Smith.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so, and he played both of the games on the 4th line
Hmm.
with Elliot Denoyer, and on Friday, it was Sawyer Bolton, and on Sunday, it was JR Avon, and I would say in the Sunday game with Denoyer and Avon, he helped the 2 of them elevate their game a little bit.
Yeah, I could see that. Again, yeah, he's a guy that at the AHL level is very, very effective.
Yeah, I would say so. Now, Gorbenkin, like I said, only played on Sunday. And
Right.
the thing that stood out most to me about his game, considering he had zero practice with the team, like literally his first skate with the team was the game. So he definitely makes the power play look better. And he had some chemistry on the power play with Anthony Richard for sure.
Yeah, he with the Marlies, he was getting 147 time on the power play on average. So that's a lot of time. He doesn't hit as much as you think. He only is averaging 0.98 hits per game, and I thought he was a little bit more physical than that. Uh, and he averages a little over 14 minutes of ice time, 49% on winning puck
Mhm.
battles. So there's things that he definitely still needs to work on. But overall, he's a good player. He is still a developing player. That's the thing about
Yeah, I would say he was aggressive on the forecheck, and he
him.
was
Mhm.
very good at finding open ice. Like, that's the thing is, like, I think it's partially being new, right?
Yeah.
That's what you do when you're skating with new guys for the first time. I mean, even I know that from my
Right.
time as a beer leaguer, right?
Right.
Just find open ice and maybe something will happen, right?
Right.
So, I think that was a huge part of it, but I thought he was very good at it, and considering how good Wilkes-Barre Scranton is as a team, I think that, the Phantoms overall with these new guys, I think looked marginally better than they did the last time we saw them play.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the pickups have been good for them.
Now, beyond those 2, I think, the other standout players for the Phantoms continue to be Zaid Wisdom. We talked about him from last week having elevated his game this season. His
Yes.
points are much better than he's ever gotten. Well, he got a goal and an assist on Friday's game. Goal was the empty netter, but still, empty netters are important. And Zaid Wisdom, I think, again, with the addition of Gurbenkin to the lineup, they did some line shuffling. And so Wisdom wound up on the top line with Grebenkin and Jacob Gaucher. And I think that's a really interesting combination.
I like that combination. I do think that there could be good chemistry there.
Yeah, I really do as well because I think Wisdom just has like an all out aspect to his game, and Gurbenkin seems a little bit more of a thinker, and Gaucher is just a solid two-way center. And
Right.
I think that's a really good combination. And I think it'll help Jacob Gaucher as well.
It will.
So I think, the new guys are good. Other guys are integrating with him well. Ethan Sampson had a very good week, scored in both games. And in Friday's game, it was a power play goal that was the game winning goal. So that's always good to see there.
Yeah, if we could see a little uptick in his game, I mean, he's a guy that
Mhm.
definitely has some potential.
Yeah, and, J.R. Avon, like I mentioned, with the addition of the new guys and having Smith there, I think it really helped. He had an assist on Friday that was a great pass to Ethan Sampson for one of those aforementioned goals. He had an assist on Sunday, and like I said, just that chemistry with Denoye and Smith was really good.
Yeah, it's nice to see.
Yeah, and I would say that Anthony Richard had an assist on Friday and an assist on Sunday. He drew a key penalty on Friday that led to that game-winning goal from Ethan Sampson. So I just think he continues to be a solid performer that's a leader on this team, and we'll see if he gets back up to the NHL this year.
Yeah, I don't know if he will. If he does, I'm okay with it, but he is a solid AHL player. He's really good.
Yeah, and, congratulations to Garrett Wilson, the captain of the Phantoms. He had his 400th career point Friday with the opening goal of that game, and then on Sunday, which was also his birthday, broke the record for most games as a Lehigh Valley Phantom. Not the full breadth of the Phantoms history,
Right.
but just in Lehigh, but still, broke Greg Carey's record, so that
Yeah,
was
no, that's
cool.
great. I think that's cool. I would think Frank the Animal played more games than that for the Phantoms, just off the top of
Yeah,
my head. But yeah, no, that's
no.
great.
Yeah. All right. Well, of course, we want to talk about Aleksei Kolosov, and we're going to do that. Plus, we are going to give our pick for that one remaining call up coming up next.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
All right. So Alexei Kolosov played both games, Friday and Sunday, which is exactly what we wanted to
Yes.
happen, given that there was a day break in between. And I think it was very good that he did that because it's getting him more games, more consecutive games, and really getting into the rhythm of playing on a regular basis, which was really important. Now, like I said at the top of the show, there was a split decision here with the 2 games. Uh, and I would say the Friday game was obviously more of a showcase game for Kolosov, 27 saves on 28 shots. Both games had an extended 5-on-3 against the Phantoms,
Okay.
which he had to withstand. And on the Sunday game, like the defense actually played really well. There was only like 1 shot that got through, which is incredible. But I think that Kolosov made some very, very good saves, including on a 2-on-0 at the end of the second period on Friday. And I think between the 2 games played very, very well. I think more of the goals on Sunday were a little fluky. There was definitely a screen. There was definitely a weird bounce involved in one of them. So I do think that overall, like this playing on a regular basis is so helpful for him.
Yeah, I mean, if he's going to be your starting playoff goalie, he has to play a lot. I was surprised when I looked up his save percentage is only 881, and that's in 10 games, but it's only 10 games. Like he needs
Right.
another 10 games. And so that and then we'll have a better idea of what he is. Like Parker Hagen is a 906. And I know we've talked about him a lot on the show and said that he's been gutting it out and everything, but Right now, Kolosov is pretty much the same save percentage as Cal Peterson. So he
Right.
has to play better than that for the playoffs. He doesn't see the thing is just because you played in the KHL, you're now in North America. He is a younger goalie, and then you're going to be talking about playing in the playoffs and potentially against a very seasoned team. He has to be ready for that. I don't think he's quite ready for that yet because he hasn't played enough.
Yeah. And I think that's what the remainder of this season is, right? And
Yeah,
that with 12 games remaining, he should play probably 9 of
9
them.
games.
And then that'll put him in a good position to go into the playoffs kind of more in stride and more comfortable and back to a regular routine. And I think that's the best thing for him at this point.
But give him the same defenseman in front of him too. Don't change that out too much because that could cause some problems too.
Yeah, I think they are. I think that's one thing that I trust them to do coaching wise is to
Right.
just get more stable as we get closer to the playoffs. That the only way they're going to switch things out at this point is if there's an injury.
That would be good.
And they have to, and I like maybe the third pairing there'll be a swap out a little bit, but Ben Gleason came back from injury this week. And so when you have like McDonald and Belpedio and then Jennings and Grons and then Gleason and Sampson, I think that's a solid
That's solid.
blue line for as the Phantoms go. It's a
Yes.
solid blue line. And Belpedio has been playing a lot better too recently. So I think like there's a lot to offer here from this blue line and with Kolosov in net, I think it'll be okay. But yeah, I do think that Kolosov is looking better and more comfortable. So that is a good thing, especially given the penalties that the Phantoms are taking and
Yeah.
how the PK is working. Uh, just they've had a bit of a struggle on that front with just having to be on the PK way too much. So, and the 5-on-3s, like I mentioned. But I think it's good. In the meantime, we do have that one recall spot left for the Flyers. And at this point, I do think they have to use it first
Hmm.
off. They may be trying to hold on to it because they, for whatever reason, or give the 3 guys they have now more of an extended look, and then it'll be the last 5 or 6 games for the other person, which, is I think okay. Not great, but okay,
Right.
especially when you have Nick Delorier sitting there still in the lineup.
Right.
But, so who would you pick for this
Yeah,
call?
and so this got misconstrued the other day on Twitter because I put that I would have Jacob Gaucher come in and then replace Delorier, and someone's like, "Well, he's not a fighter." I'm like, "I'm not suggesting he's a fighter. I'm suggesting Delorier doesn't do anything, and you don't need him." A perfect example was last game. When he's at stretching at center ice, he's hoping that the other team has somebody that's going to s talk him and basically have someone to fight later in that game. Nobody cared. He was stretching by himself. Nobody went up to him. Most games, nobody goes up to him. Why? Because down the stretch, nobody's fighting. And you don't need this guy in the lineup at all. And so I think
No.
Gaucher has proved himself and he's got a contract, right? So he
Yep.
is a guy that has to get that look.
It's tough because he has already gotten a call up
I
this
know.
year, and that's partially why they gave him the contract. And so I think they know what they have in him to a large degree, which may be a reason to not call him up
Hmm.
specifically. But they can talk to him and make very clear promises or very clear expectations in terms of what he needs to do this offseason to step up his game to fight for a roster spot next year, right?
Hmm.
So I do think like all of that being equal, there is a reason to not call him up. I also agree with you that I would call him up because I want to give him more NHL
Yeah, I
games
mean,
because
I see both sides.
I see both sides of it. I think like for me, maybe Grebenkin is the right option if we're only doing it for those last 5 or 6 games. So we give him a bunch of games, with the Phantoms, call him up for a few games, and then he can play in the playoffs. Now, that doesn't help consistency on the Phantom side, and I
Right.
get that. So that's the downside to doing it, but maybe you want to give him a look at the NHL level here, and just see what you got. But I think those are my two options
Those
here.
would be my 2 also. I see why you would. I think the only other problem with that is if you do, you've kinda sent a message now to the rest of the guys down there that,
Right.
"Hey, this guy's special, you're
He
not."
jumped the line, so to
Right. So,
speak.
that's the
Yeah.
only thing I'm not crazy about.
I know. I know. And that's another negative to it. So, we'll see what happens with this remaining call up. Of course, there are emergency call ups allowed.
Right.
So if the Flyers
And
have
they'll
an
do some
injury
of
or
those. You
something.
could finagle those.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I do think, there's something to that maybe somebody else or maybe both of those guys will get the opportunity.
Right.
But I certainly would not use it on. I mean, I can't think of anybody else that I would use it on. That's the thing, at
No, I
least
mean, Gronz
on the
is
forward side.
yeah, I think at this point it needs to be a forward. I don't think they're
Right.
using Gronz, so I'm not gonna waste time on the show talking about it. I think unfortunately, he's not gonna be a Flyer that much longer or a Phantom. But yeah, I don't think it'll be Gronz, but could it be? Sure, and I would be happy with that, but it's probably not gonna be.
All right, the Phantoms have 3 games this week to look forward to. There's, the Milwaukee Admirals tomorrow night, and then we've got a Friday, Saturday back-to-back where the Phantoms are hosting the Syracuse Crunch and the Providence Bruins, and the P Bruins are gonna be an interesting opponent because, that is where Fraser Mittens
Yeah.
went,
Yep.
the other Toronto prospect that got
Yep.
traded at the trade deadline, and he's having a good start in Providence so far. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see those 2 Toronto prospects have to go head to head,
Yeah.
for different teams on Saturday.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Minton has a lot of talent. I'd like to see the Phantoms beat Milwaukee, and then that may help me feel more confident about them in the first round.
Right. Exactly.
Not that they'll face them, but just
Exactly.
that they could beat a team of that quality.
Yep. Understood. Understood. All right, that will do it for today's show. Thanks so much for listening. And again, on tomorrow's show, we're going to talk about that 84 game schedule proposal, plus answer your mailbag questions. Let us know your Flyers thoughts on any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on those same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast. It brings you daily league-wide stories that matter with local coverage you love from Locked On. I am there each and every Friday, and then also on the Women's Hockey Report on Saturdays. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.